Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Would request you all to please take your seats and put your mobile phone on silent mode. We are in the verge to commence our first edition of BCC&I Corporate Governance Recognition. Thank you. Welcome to the first edition of BCC&I Corporate Governance Recognition, organized by the Corporate Governance Committee of the Bengal Chamber. I would now request Mr. Shubir Chakraborty, President, the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and MD and CEO, Exide Industry Limited, to be on the dais, please. Mr. Jitendra Kumar, Chairperson, Corporate Governance Committee and CSR Committee, the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to be on the dais. May I now request our esteemed panel of jury, Professor Ashish Bhattacharya, to be on the dais. C.S. Devendra V. Deshpandeji, President, the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. Advocate Vijay Jalani, Government Nominee, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and former Government Nominee, Institute of Company Secretaries of India and Institute of Cost Accountants of India, to be on the dais, please. I think he will be joining us shortly. May I now request Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, former Director General and CEO, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, to be on the dais, please. Bhaskar sir is there with us. We will come back to Bhaskar sir at the panel discussion. We would request Sri D. Bandyopadhyay, Regional Director, Eastern Region, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, to be on the dais. Thank you. Without further ado, I would now request Mr. Shubir Chakraborty, President, the Bengal Chamber, to give the formal welcome address.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first edition of the BCC&I Corporate Governance Recognition 2022, organized by the Corporate Governance Committee of the Bengal Chamber. On behalf of the Chamber, it is my pleasure to welcome our Chief Guest, Sri D. Bandyopadhyay, Regional Director, Eastern Region, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, our esteemed panel of judges, Sri R.S. Bandyopadhyay, former Secretary to the Government of India, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Sri Ashish K. Bhattacharya, Founder, Nonlinear Insights Private Limited, and Distinguished Professor, Shiv Nadar University, Advocate Vijay Jalani, Government Nominee, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and former Government Nominee, Institute of Company Secretaries of India, and Institute of Cost Accountants of India, and Sri C.S. Devendra V. Deshpande, President, ICSI, the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, along with our esteemed panelists. The aim of the BCC&I Corporate Governance Recognition exercise is to recognize organizations that most closely adhere to the standards of governance to foster a culture of good corporate citizenship. Both services and manufacturing corporates are participating in this initiative. The BCCI Corporate Governance Recognition 2022 is curated to honor the continued efforts of the corporate bodies to create awareness, promote policy and practices, and create capacity for mainstream practices sustainably. Today's afternoon focuses on the strong link between the corporate reputation and stakeholder trust, and feed into building brand value. In this process, we are happy to announce that apart from our eminent panel of juries, we have PricewaterhouseCoopers Services LLP as our knowledge partner. We have received extremely encouraging participation from a large number of both large as well as MSME organizations from across Bengal. I congratulate the Corporate Governance Committee of the Chamber for taking the initiative of organizing such a relevant program in today's times, and I believe that our invitees and delegates present here today will have significant takeaways from the session. I welcome and thank all our partners and our friends from the media, without whose support it would not have been possible for us to organize an award program of this magnitude. Ladies and gentlemen, with these words, I welcome you all once again and wish all the participants all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. May I now request Mr. Jitendra Kumar, Chairperson, Corporate Governance Committee of the Bengal Chamber, to give the theme address.
President, Bengal Chamber of Commerce, our chief guest, Mr. Bandyopadhyay, eminent jurist, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all. So at the outset, I heartily welcome all the corporates and all the stakeholders to be a part of this first annual CSR event which is organized by Bengal Chamber of Commerce. So this particular idea came to us a few months back when and a small team which was working for last few months, in fact I mean it's more than a year now, which was a 4-5 members corporate team which was constituted, and they were working on various qualification criteria and other things, but it gathered pace sometime 4-5 months back, and the dedicated team which was there, it started working on the nitty-gritty of that. So as part of the process, we were able to successfully find a eminent jurist to become this part of this entire journey, which is I think the key and success to each and every award function. So we are lucky to have all these empaneled jury among us who went through those painstaking number of hours, kind of visualizing and assessing all those criterias and spending time and finally giving the scorings. And finally, because of which probably we are here to declare the awards. I think the credit goes to the team of PwC also, and I would have special thanks to Mr. Arnub Basu and Rajiv Basu, part of this, the team who has agreed to become a knowledge partner. So the effort put by the PwC team is immense. So Mr. Rajiv is also here with us. So thank you, Mr. Rajiv, for doing all those kind of homework and groundwork for this event. Now talking about this particular topic, I just remember one probably incident sometime since early 90s when I was a young student of Company Secretaries of India, probably 92 or 93. I was at an event which was at Vigyan Bhavan, and one of the corporate governance award was given to Mr. Brij Mohan Lal, the Hero Group chairperson. Yes, Mr. Munjal. So he was being asked what this corporate governance means to you and how do you manage such a big organization from the governance point of view. So his answer was very simple. Okay, don't complicate the things. I look it from the simple way, like the way I manage my family, I manage my extension, my extended family members, friends. The same concept, the same idea, same vision I apply to the corporates. Like if I have family of 10 members, 15 members, so at 10 to 15 members reports to me So same kind of treatment, same kind of patient, I inculcate and try to, deal with them. So there is nothing special for a corporate also. So if those 10, 15 people also try to inculcate the same kind of passion and dedication and discipline to the people down the level, that is how, this corporate governance concept takes care of everything. So it's not simple as that. Again, for saying it looks that, but once we have such a large corporates, you need to have some kind of disciplined approach. You need to have strong ethical standards. And those companies who are able to successfully manage those things, so they score much better on the corporate governance thing. Now coming back to India thing, I think it's formally started sometime in year 2000 when this clause 49 was introduced as part of listing agreement. Prior to that, I think India was more of an inner looking kind of country. We are more of a conservative approach. Maybe those FDIs and foreign investors, we are not very much welcome during those license Raj kind of thing. So this corporate governance was not having that kind of importance. And since this clause 49 was introduced, the concept of independent directors, related party transition slowly came into picture. And now this has been evolved, like for last 20, 24 years, the CG has evolved to a great extent. And this is not the end of the day, but every other day we see a lot of regulations are coming, a lot of further strengthening of those governance norms are coming up. So I would like to have credit to 2-3 events, like there are 2-3 episodes which happened, like Satyam scandal happened, similarly IFL kind of thing happened. So these Kingfisher episode happened. So whenever this kind of big scam or something happens, the government comes, I'd say it's maybe a little bit late, but then all this corporate governance is looked into a different prism kind of thing, and the further norms are improved. Another probably event which has happened is the evolution of those proxy advisory firms. I think they are playing a very big role in shaping the corporate governance norms for Indian countries. And all those big investors, they rely upon the reports of all those proxy advisory firms. So what is the opinion of those advisory firms? So they basically dissect the entire annual report and whatever information is there in public domain, and then give the scoring, and that is how the voting pattern of the big investor comes. So that probably, we are moving into more disclosure, more transparency, that kind of approach. India is moving into that. Again, this is a journey. There is no end of the tunnel, which I could say. This is an ever kind of going thing. Another thing which is coming up is NSE is coming with the NSE Prime kind of listing. This is again new concept. Maybe it is still in work in progress kind of thing, but the governance bar is being set up higher and higher. It's good for the overall the setup for the investor. It works wonderfully well. But if you think somebody like me as a compliance officer, how does corporate governance means to me? Like every other day when I wake up in the morning, I take up the phone, I see there's a new regulation has come up, new notification, no FAQs. So as a compliance officer, I don't know, I look into CG in a different kind of prism. Sometimes we are facing overlap of regulators also. Maybe SEBI trying to overreach MCA, and there is ICSI, ICAI, and a lot of regulatory bodies are there where they are prescribing their own norms of corporate governance. So these are the just opening remarks. I just put some thoughts into that, and we will love to hear from our expert panelists and jurists when they talk in the panel discussion. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We would now request our chief guest to come up to the dais and deliver his address. Sri D. Bandopadhyay, Regional Director, Eastern Region, Ministry of Corporate Affairs.
President of the Chamber, Mr. Chakraborty, Mr. Kumar, Jhalaniji, Mr. Deshpande, and Mr. Chakravarti, Mr. Bhattacharya, I'm sorry, and all worthy, distinguished persons in the attendance today. Good afternoon. Now, corporate governance is a subject very close to the heart of every regulator. Corporate governance, the definition is known to each one of us, is a systems which encompass the various principles and procedures for effective direction and control of the companies. Now the principles should be strong and the processes should be robust to deliver a effective corporate governance environment. And the four pillars of corporate governance obviously are accountability, responsibility, transparency, and integrity. Now, the eminent jurists, we will be listening and learning a lot from them today. And just peripherally, I will try to say something on this. Some of the very interesting quotes are there regarding corporate governance. The two of them I found really more interesting. One I found Sri Adi Godrej. He said corporate governance should be done more through principles than rules. Very aptly said. The rule books are meant for compliance managers and the principles are meant for the governance managers. And governance manager focuses on the principles which it in turn installs a very strengthened and robust compliance environment in a company. The other quote is from Louis Gassner, the ex-chairman and CEO of IBM. He said that the real mechanism for corporate governance is the active involvement of the owners. This is the key, in my understanding. The owner is the inspirer and the motivator for corporate governance climate. Without the owner's active support and encouragement, a good corporate governance story cannot be written. Now, corporate governance delivers a lot of benefits to an entity. It helps to enhance the image, branding, public perception, helps to mobilize resources, helps to attract the best of talents, and the most important, it helps to converge the goals of the owners and the managers. And from the regulator side, is my experience shows that, and my colleagues also, that a company having a stronger corporate governance setup, they give us more assurance while considering their proposals for statutory approvals and other permissions compared to the companies which have below the standard corporate governance arrangements. And before ending, I will just say about one segment where corporate governance has to be a bit more focused. It is already focused. I'm not saying it's focused, but for some of the entities in that segment, I'm talking about the startups. Now, India is having today around 61,000 plus, 61,400 around startups as in March 22. In the fiscal 22, around 14,000 startups were formed. And there are a lot of unicorns. In 2021, around 44 unicorns came up, new unicorns. In this setup, what we are finding that the startups, they're more focused with the technological excellences, obviously. And because the total system, this ecosystem of startup is hinged upon technological excellence. It's definitely the most important factor, but at the same time, corporate governance should not take a backseat, as it is happening in some of the startups. I'm not saying all startups. And they are feeling the heat when the proposals for collaborations and private equity fundings come up. Then they get impacted somewhat by the bit non-impeccable observations emanating from the due diligence studies. This is one area startups have to address because India looks upon the startups with great hopes. With these words, thank you to the chambers for giving me the privilege and the opportunity to come here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. With this, we will come to the conclusion of our inaugural session and would request our President, Mr. Shubhi Chakraborty, to give a token of memento on behalf of the Chamber to Shri D. Bandopadhyay. and a token of memento to our eminent jury, Professor Ashish Bhattacharya. I would now request Jitendra sir to say a few words before we conclude the inaugural session.
Okay, actually, Miss, I just want to briefly explain the process which we followed for this particular event. As you know, the core members, while framing those questions, they identified 50 questions, which was categorized into 4 main categories. All those questions, 10, 12 questions was framed under one category. And all those questions were sent to all those applicants. And just too happy to announce that we have got very good response from the corporates. It's much better than actually what we expected. So all those applicant companies, they filled up those forms and it went to the chambers. And chambers, what they did, so they compiled and collated in a particular format as advised by the PwC and sent it to our knowledge partner PwC, which was led by Mr. Rajiv Basu. So he basically is based on all those criteria and applications. They went through a rigorous assessment process through the publicly available assessment. They further do their R&D on whatever application replied has been given or not, whether it is true or not as per the public information. And based on the factual sheets, all those questionnaires were sent to the jury members. So the jury members, through a couple of 2-3 round of meetings, they give the ranking to each and every points separately to each of those 50 points. And once this was done separately by all the 4 jury members, this was through a Google form. It came to the PwC. The PwC was done the scoring and collated the information. Now it was given to the chambers for the final decision. So just want to say that this entire process was done in a purely professional manner, with complete transparency and in a proper professional manner. So that's all I just wanted to share with all the corporate members. Thank you. And just one more thing, that this is being the first year. So it's a learning curve from all of us. Be it all these committee members, be it our knowledge partner. So there were some delays, some here and there, plus minus point. But since this is the annual event, this is the first year, we will definitely try to improve and make it much bigger next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We will now request our dignitaries on the dais to please take their seats. We are going to take a 1-minute break and change over to the next session. Yes. দেখে বলতে হবে। So we are starting slowly with the others. Yeah. Thank you for your patience. We are now commencing our panel discussion on revisiting business and corporate governance. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Harish Agarwal, partner, Ernst & Young. He is the managing partner for Kolkata and Bangladesh offices of E&Y. He is also the COO for the consulting service lines for Ernst & Young India. He is a chartered accountant and certified information systems auditor. He has worked with clients within India and abroad. We are happy to have Mr. Harish Agarwal. Sir, we request you to take the dais. A round of applause for him. Ladies and gentlemen, we are time and again proud and privileged to introduce Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, former Director General and CEO, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs. We are fortunate to have him amongst us today. Dr. Chatterjee, widely acclaimed as the father of corporate social responsibility in India, has joined Naveen Jindal Steel and Power Limited as an independent director. Dr. Chatterjee is a former IAS officer and a postgraduate in history, MPhil in MBA, PhD, and LLB. He has got many roles. It will take a day to introduce him. We are very fortunate to have Dr. Chatterjee amongst us, and I would request sir to take the dais, please. Thank you, sir. We have amongst us Sri Sachin Goyal, Joint Director, Financial Analysis of Competition Commission of India. We are thankful to him for joining us in such a short notice. We were just discussing about this program last week, and today we have him amongst us. We proudly present Sri Sachin Goyal, and we would request him to be on the dais, please. Thank you. Our next panelist, C.S. Devendra V. Deshpande, a fellow member of the ICSI and a postgraduate in commerce from Pune University. C.S. Devendra V. Deshpande was elected to the Central Council of the ICSI for the term 2019-2022 and served as Vice President of the ICSI for the year 21 before being elected as President the ICSI for the year 2022. Please welcome C.S. Devendra V. Deshpande. Thank you. We now welcome Advocate Vijay Jalani, Government Nominee, Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, and former Government Nominee, Institute of Company Secretaries of India and Institute of Cost Accountants of India. Currently practicing as an advocate, Sri Jalani was the past chairman of the Northern Indian Regional Council of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He has also been a government-nominated member in the Central Council of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. We welcome you, sir, and request you to be on the dais. We will be joined shortly by Mr. Arnab Basu, advisor, leader, and member of the Board of Directors, PricewaterhouseCoopers Private Limited, and Senior Vice President, the Bengal Chamber. Mr. Basu is the advisory leader for PwC in India. He has 2 decades of consulting experience in diverse fields like digital strategy and business transformation, financial performance management, removing complexity and defining the digital journey leveraging enterprise application. He is part of the Global Advisory Leadership Team too. He will be joined by few minutes. He is just on his way. So once he comes, he will straight away join the discussion. With this, I would request Harish sir to please start off our today's panel discussion.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Looking at the, at the quality of people sitting around me, I'm reminded of this talent that, if you've seen the movie Pushpa, there was this heroine called Rashmika Mandana, and apparently she did a movie with Amitabh Bachchan. And I was reading her, interview, and she said when she went on the set first time and she met Amitabh Bachchan, she was in awe and she couldn't talk. So I'm having a similar feeling. I'll try to control my awe and ask a few questions from the esteemed panelists around me. Sir, you'll try to let me settle as much as Mr. Bachchan allowed Rashmika to do that. So on that lighter note, let's start. Corporate governance, corporate and business governance. I think, how does it matter to us? Many of us in this room are CAs, company secretaries, or work in businesses, so they are directly affected by business or corporate governance. Or many of people like me who work in a public accounting firm also think of it as a service that we provide to our clients to help uphold business and corporate governance. But to a normal person, how does it impact? I would say the classical example is in the last 2 weeks, there's this cryptocurrency firm in the US called FTX, which went down. It has affected not only people who had invested in FTX, it has invested anybody who had invested in, it has infected anybody who had invested in cryptocurrency. So the industry as a whole has been impacted by the lack of governance in one particular company. That's how it's important. People have lost money. I've got friends, I don't invest in cryptocurrency, but I've got friends who've lost a bundle having invested in cryptocurrency. And I think that kind of is something which a common man would start realizing what's the importance of governance. And I think the esteemed panelists that we have, they will talk about their experience. The other issue that I have been watching in the last 2 weeks is the House of Mouse, Disney. They fired their current CEO and they brought back their old CEO, who's 71 years old. I think he passed over 4 successors and now he's come back. The question is he young enough to lead the company for the next 7, 8, 10 years? Or is the governance in the company right enough that they're able to create successors for a superstar CEO? I think these are 2, I would say, items that I would, just leave the thoughts with you before I start asking a few questions from my esteemed panelists. Arnab would be joining in a few minutes, as Sukanya mentioned. So, Dr. Chatterjee, if I may first ask you a question. You obviously, watch it from the regulator perspective, and you have been watching us from a regulator perspective for a long, long time. And I think, we do need the right regulation in place to make sure that businesses, go in the right lane and create value for the shareholders, for the larger community, for the employees. And I think also with this whole ESG buzz becoming more and more important, I think also the environment besides social and governance. So I think, if you look at the plethora of regulations that exist today, we require to have an internal audit committee. There are many other audit committees that are required. There's ICFR. There are many other procedures. But in your view, Dr. Chatterjee, in a company, what enables A, transparency and accountability, and B, creates a culture of compliance, value, and ethics?
That is a very broad question.
It is. It is, sir.
It'll probably take me all afternoon.
Absolutely, sir. Take your time.
No, I don't want to do that or inflict a speech on the audience. I'll try and make it as succinct as I possibly can. As one of the original drafters of the Companies Act of 2013, I was then in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and we suddenly found ourselves looking at Sarbanes-Oxley. We looked at the 2008-9 meltdown of the world economy. The challenges before us when we were actually writing the Companies Act of 2013 was a very dark and gloomy period of corporate history. We just had Satyam before that.
Yes.
So, in some ways, I do think now perhaps we swung the pendulum a little too much in the direction of regulation. But it was also occasioned by the fact that the world was going through a very cathartic moment when all of corporate ink, so to speak, was under a cloud. That they were the ones who brought the world to its knees. The failure of one corporate after another was like exactly what you said. When you go to a bowling alley, you hit one spindle and all of them fall together. It's like skittling the whole environment. And I was then positioned in the Planning Commission under Mr. Monte Ahluwalia at the time of the economic meltdown of 2008-9. And we could see how threatening the world environment was. And the funny part is that governments were at the receiving end of corporate failure. Now the onus on us was, if corporates around the world are failing, bringing the world into recession, Citibank comes to the inquiry committee flying in helicopters and landing on the roof of the very same building in which the inquiry committee is sitting, that the attitude of the corporate is not that we have brought the world to its knees, but so what? I mean, the attitude of the corporate entities who came there, the leadership that arrived, was so arrogant. It really felt as though, you know, who the hell are these characters? They brought the world to its knees and they are still so arrogant about it. So in that sense, when we drafted these 470 sections of the 2013 Act, the idea was to ensure that the compliances themselves would bring in transparency and accountability, which is at the heart of all we do. If our stakeholders, and I won't say shareholders, if stakeholders see in the governance of organizations that level of transparency and accountability, then only the belief and trust in the corporate world will come back to where it should be.
Absolutely so.
Why is G in ESG, to me, the most important part of all of ESG? Because if the governance in the organization, of the corporate organization, is not strong, the company will fail and bring down with it many others. That's all I have to say to start with.
Sorry, before you put down the mic, you mentioned the word arrogance. You know,
yes.
Do you see that's decreasing in the last few years?
Yes and no, because I see mavericks like Musk. I mean, who are these guys? They walk into a Twitter room and fire everybody and then say, oh my God, did I actually fire how many? I can't remember. What is this but a sign of extreme arrogance? I mean, bordering on insanity. And I see more and more of corporate leadership and I wonder why they are leaders. How can insane people run organizations when, frankly speaking, they should be the ones who are taking, you know, mental tests in asylums? But there you are. So sometimes you wonder, yes, does it reduce arrogance? I see that in my own boardroom, in many very responsible companies, and I'm not denigrating the whole of corporate, the world.
Sure, sir.
There are very, very many very responsible corporates who now understand the legislation and believe that good compliance leads to good governance. They set examples of good governance. And when they represent their companies at forums, whether it's Davos or anywhere else, they come across as principled, responsible businesses. That's what we want to achieve. And in many ways, I think that culture is spreading across the globe. Thank God.
Thank God indeed. Thank you, sir. On that note, I'll move to my panelist on the right, Sri Sachin Goyal. Sir, you've been very closely associated with the Competition Commission of India and, obviously watch corporates from a very different lens. So if I see, under the Competition Act, what do you think businesses should be watching out for? What are the risks that they should be watching out for? And using the right corporate governance mechanisms, how can they minimize those risks?
First of all, thank you for having me here. Before answering your question, I'll just give you a brief overview what our act is all about. So this act was introduced in 2002 and it was actually implemented in 2009 because of some court cases. There are three enforcement pillars in the act. First is that the act prohibits anti-competitive agreements. So these agreements are both at the horizontal level, that is between the suppliers at the same level in the value chain, for example, suppliers of cements. And the other agreement is the vertical agreements, that is the agreement between players at different value chain, different levels in the value chain, for example, a distributor and a manufacturer. So Act prohibits all these agreements which have anti-competitive effect. The second enforcement tool is the prohibition of abuse of dominant position. So all the entities which are dominant in their respective markets, there are certain conducts which are prohibited, which they cannot enter into. And the third is the enforcement of merger regulation, that certain entities, whenever they do M&As and they meet the threshold criteria given in the Act, they have to come to us and take approvals.
Sure.
So the violation of all these principles involves significant risks apart from reputational damage. There are monetary and non-monetary consequences. If you talk about monetary consequences, we can impose a penalty of up to 10% of the relevant turnover on the contravening entities. And in case of cartels, the period of contravention is to be considered while computing penalties. Coming to the non-monetary consequences, the Commission can impose cease and desist orders and also can direct the modification of the agreements which are found to be anti-competitive. So there are multiple severe consequences. You must have read in newspapers recently that Commission has came hard on Google and then Make My Trip. Google has been imposed 2 different penalties totaling 2,200 crores. Make My Trip and OYO have also been penalized. We have seen earlier cases where DLF in 2011 was imposed with a penalty of 600 crores. And BCC&I, Coal India, cement players, all have been penalized heavily by the Commission because of various contraventions. So there are serious risks to the entities if they do not comply with the provisions of the Act. So we at the Commission, through these advocacy initiatives, we strongly recommend companies to implement a competition compliance program, which in a way allow them to train their manpower or train their staff what kind of conduct is acceptable, what is not acceptable. They are made aware of the provisions of the Act. These programs implement or inculcate a culture of competition, and they act as a ex-ante tool for the companies. They can identify or they can detect deviation first hand before the contravention happens. So these competition compliance programs can be really helpful for the companies to avoid the risks associated with violation of the Act.
Basically, you create a level playing field for all businesses.
Yes.
Sure, sir. So thank you, sir. I think this is really, really helpful. So you did answer the risks that businesses face, on those 4 areas. On the corporate governance side, is there any advice that you have to businesses, that they should, create like 10 commandments, simple things in their life that will help them avoid, falling under the gaze of the competition commission?
As I was talking about the competition compliance program, the Commission has published a model competition compliance program. So since all the entities in the country are covered under the Act, so we cannot just propose one single document which is applicable to all. So this is a model document. All the senior management can go through the document and they can modify the document and implement, customize it and implement in their organization. So that they can identify the risks which is there in their organization. For example, if you are entering into discussion with your competitors, how you are dealing with your customers, how you are dealing with your trading partners. So there could be an in-house competition audit of your various agreements So you can identify if there is a problem in those agreements or in your practices. You can identify those, you can correct those, and you can avoid the probable contravention of the act. So you will be able to avoid the risks that you will run of attracting penalty or going through the rigorous process of investigation and then coming to the commission for a hearing, and the complete process you can avoid.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Mr. Deshpande, if I may, move on to yourself, sir. Welcome. If I see the way corporate governance is implemented in companies, the first and foremost ingredient is to have, independent board, independent committees, and then, lay down how they perform in the company. What are your views on the effective and objective composition of board in any public company?
Sure. So first of all, I would like to thank BCCI for organizing this first ever Corporate Governance Awards. This definitely is going to help companies who are members of the BCCI to understand what is corporate governance, and with the questionnaire which was framed for the jury, definitely it will definitely help the corporates to develop the corporate governance system in their own company. And the initial thought which you said, what is corporate governance? So initially it was only compliance, now it is corporate governance, and now people are talking about sustainability. So ESG plus sustainability. So we are going forward. So the things are moving in a right direction in respect of Indian corporates are concerned. I had been associated with OECD. I was a panelist in OECD, where we talk about OECD principles of corporate governance. So they are also amending this OECD principle. So I was a part of that panel also. And people are thinking that in India there is more of regulation and less of corporate governance, and there is always a dilemma or a confusion about India that Indian corporates and Indian entities will only be well governed if they are well regulated. So there is a lot of difference between a regulation and a governance. I think regulation always stipulate that, okay, what is legal, and corporate governance definitely states what is correct, what is right. So even our Institute of Company Secretaries of India has a motto which states as Satyam Vada Dharmam Chara. So something to do with governance. So governance is something which is dharma, which may not be only legal, but it is also correct. So I think the diverse boards definitely are going to help the companies to take correct decisions, right decisions. They would be definitely legal decisions, but the corporate governance will definitely enhance if we have a diverse board. So independent directors, now there are very strict norms of who can be an independent director. After 2013 Act and the LODR regulation amendments, the things have really become stricter for appointing an independent director. Otherwise, we have seen corporates before maybe 2014. Independent director is a person who is not fitting in the definition, but who will follow what is to be followed by the entrepreneur. But the things have definitely changed. With the penalties also being imposed on independent directors in, I think, few of the cases, even the penalties have been imposed. Even those Companies Act, specifically section 149 subsection 12, gives a immunity to the independent directors. But in certain cases, regulators have gone beyond that immunity and got hold of independent directors. So responsibility of independent directors have also increased. So once they are responsible, they will definitely say no to no and yes to yes. So they will take decisions which is in the best interest of corporate governance, with executive directors, non-executive directors, combination of this. The recent amendment of related party transactions should be approved above a threshold by the independent directors in audit committee. Definitely will give a different edge, even though there are a lot of questions on that particular point, because then you are making independent directors taking certain decisions as an executive director. So still there are a few questions, and SEBI has been dealing with all these questions. So the biggest regulator of corporate governance, I think, beyond MCA is SEBI. And I think we have a very good chance. If you talk about Indian corporates, we have a very good role now to play. Somebody just mentioned about proxy advisors. World is talking about stewardship. So they are going beyond the proxy advisor. Proxy advisors are people who are giving you advice, but stewards are those people who are investing as well as giving advice. So the world is moving ahead, and I think India is not way far behind. So this different combination on the board will definitely help. I think in one of the discussions I mentioned this is a very different topic in respect of composition of board. When I talk about independent director, I foresee after 5 years or 10 years or even maybe later than that, use of artificial intelligence and blockchain. Yeah, even a robo, he can become an independent director because he can analyze the data, he can take the decision. Artificial intelligence and the data feed which we give to a robo, he will be the best person to take an independent decision. So he will not be influenced. So maybe few years down the line, we can see this particular thing coming to the reality. So I think diverse board definitely will add value to the corporates, and corporate governance definitely, whatever we are discussing, compliance is a cost and governance is a value. So better governed companies will definitely have better value. ESG rating, ESG funding, all these concepts will come to India, and soon we will be really saying that, okay, this company is having a better rating, so they are better valued. So I think good composition of board will definitely help the Indian corporates.
So you got me worried. I was thinking when I retire, I'll become an independent director on a few boards, but you're saying robots are going to take away that position.
No, but you can be the person who can give the data to the robot, and we still have some role to play in that.
I actually have two follow-up questions, sir. I'll not
sure.
let you go so quickly.
Yep.
You mentioned penal provisions, keep people in line. But isn't it also that if you have too much penal provisions, then good independent directors will not want to serve on the board of companies that are not so clean? As a result, those companies will never get a chance to clean themselves. They will get not so good independent directors, and the corporate governance in that company would never improve. So is penal provision the right mechanism?
I'm not saying that is the right mechanism, but see, if it is not in all cases. Let me tell you that in all scams or in all corporate frauds, all independent directors were not caught. It was one of the case. So I think it is just an alarm to those independent directors that your eyes and ears should be open so that you take a right decision. So I think sometimes if there is a doubt in the minds of regulators, definitely these penal decisions.
I'll give you a corollary. When 2013 demanded that auditors get changed every 10 years at max.
Correct.
5 years, and then they have to be changed after. So in 2018, when the first thing it got implemented, a lot of auditors got changed. But in the next 12 to 18 months after that, a lot of the big firms actually resigned from the audits.
Yes.
Of the companies that they had taken, because they just couldn't deal with, the issues that they found. And as a result, now many of those companies are not able to get, this may be a, unpopular comment that I'm going to make, but the big audit firms do not touch a certain type of firms.
Right.
Because of the impression that they are not very clean. So again, sir, connecting with your comment about independent director, those companies will not get the benefit of having right quality people ever looking at them from inside.
Yeah. So definitely we would require new breed of independent directors. And for that, I think IICA, they are doing really well, and the proficiency test and other mechanism which they are doing is excellent. They are really doing well, and I think more than, so I think that will definitely give us a new breed of independent directors, and I think every professional sitting here, maybe a chartered accountant or a company secretary, would like to become an independent director of big corporate and give their inputs for that particular company. So I think a penal provision on independent director would not actually make the things bad, it will make the things good. That is what my thought is.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Arnab. Arnab, I'll come to you, but before that, I'll go to next, Mr. Jhalani. Sir, you sit on ICAI, and you worked with ICSI and the Cost Accountants of India. So if I was to now, continuing on the same thread about board members or independent directors, what are the regulatory implications that these gentlemen and ladies face? And also the CXOs in case there's a breach in corporate governance. It'll be great, sir, if you could share some real-life examples that you've seen over the years.
Friends, in last 10 to 15 years, the word corporate governance has become much popular. And it is so costly nowadays that hundreds of crore rupees are being spent to organize seminars, conferences, to teach about the corporate governance. My simple question is, was companies before 1990s were run without any governance? Tatas, Birlas, who have established their company 100 years ago, are they not working as per the corporate governance before 10, 15 years? So why this word has become so popular nowadays? Is it not because now we are afraid of that things are not moving the way it should have moved? There is no corporate governance word, as rightly told by Mr. Debashish Bandyopadhyay, that adherence of principles and compliance of rules are the corporate governance. I share you the live example. In late 1990s, I was called by a listed company management, and they said, Mr. Jhalani, look, that time I was a practicing CA, now I am not a practicing CA. Our website has created a link called directtouch.com. In that website, that link, any supplier of our company, any buyer, any retailer, any distributor, any agent, any customer can make a complaint against any of us of the company, including MD, CEO, CEO, anybody. And as a chartered accountant, this complaint will be forwarded to you, and you will have to do the due diligence and report. If the complaint is genuine, tell us, we will take action. Otherwise, we will close. But complaint has to be processed through. And one fine day, there was a complaint against the COO of the company. I'm giving a factual example, not disclosing the name of the company. The complainant says, the CEO so-and-so belongs to so-and-so place, visit every Friday evening to so-and-so, to his mother place to meet his parents, and come back on the next 2 days, after 2 days on a working day, and during those 2 days he meets the distributors, suppliers of the factory near to his parental city. So that was the enough material for the company to forward the complaint. They wanted to convey something, the complainant wanted to convey something to the management. I could understand. And the job came to me, and I did the due diligence. It was a complaint against COO of the listed company, but they forwarded it to me. That is called corporate governance. What we are doing nowadays, we called compliance of all the rules of the Companies Act, listing regulations, SEBI, RBI, these are the corporate governance. No, sir. This is not corporate governance. As you rightly pointed out about the auditors, let me tell you, it was started, 5-year ban was started from 17. So 17, 18 auditors resigned, who were having the more than 10 years as the auditorship. Let me share with you a secret, because I am in the ICI Council. Hundreds of those listed companies whose auditors were arrested because of this Companies Act provision, they have brought back the old auditors. And because in ICI, there is a financial reporting review board also, of which I am the member. It is just like a NAFRA. NAFRA is outside body, we have FRRB. And we have decided in next year, all those such companies who brought back their old auditors, because now we can understand the connections, we will review their reports in FRRB. So corporate governance, we have make a big issue, but really are we complying with it? No, sir. We try to find out the ways so that we can say we are corporate governance compliant. What happened in Yes Bank? What happened in Nirav Modi PNB episode? The bank rule says that LOU cannot be for more than 90 days. And the foreign branch of our own Indian banks, they were accepting the LOUs of 365 days. And all the banks, whether Indian PNB, Fort branch or the overseas Indian branches, they were subject to RBI regulations. And you must have read in the newspaper, because why I am telling you, because in the institute, we made a high-level committee to review this thing, PNB episode. And I was a member of that committee also. And we even interrogated the GM of the PNB. And he could not reply to any of our answers. So for last 5 years, the person was same working as a clerk who were processing these LOUs. He was never transferred. For last 8 years, the RBI never did any inspection of that branch. So these are the issues, and if only my request is we adhere to our principles. Compliance you have to do, because otherwise panel provisions will attract you. And as far as chief officers are concerned, there is no specific violation we can point out what will happen if we are breaching the corporate governance. But definitely the action, the wrong action will either attract IPC, civil liability, criminal liability, or against the law of torts. But the point is, before we do anything, our conscience tells us that we are doing it wrong. But we silent our conscience, he is also doing the same thing. So I can also do. So that is the only thing, sir. Otherwise, we follow our conscience. We do not use this word corporate governance. I got the opportunity to be the government nominee in all the 3 professional institutes. And I challenge in the council meetings, all the members of the council, have you read the agenda? No, sir. The 2,000-page agenda, who will read? Then I challenge them that I have read everything. You speak to me, I will reply you. Because it needs time. Becoming independent director may be good for you because you get remuneration. But are you really doing the job of an independent director? Are you meeting the auditor separately? Asking him what pressure he has got? No, sir. So these are the points which we have to take care. Then everything will go right. So you wanted some live examples, I have given you, sir. Thank you.
So, sir, if I may distill what you said, more than regulations, we have to get the culture right of governance. Thank you. Arnab, if I may now call on you. Again, I think Mr. Jhalani gave the right segue. How do corporates get the right balance in corporate governance, which should not, delay decision making, so it should enable the decision making, support the strategic objectives, and also make sure that all the other requirements are met. We talk about getting risks and controls and all of those in place, but sometimes they delay the decision making. How do companies get the right balance, with you having seen so many companies?
So I think, thanks Harish, I would probably, take on from where Mr. Jhalani left. I think it's a culture issue more than a reporting issue. If you think of the reporting requirements, the guidelines, I think the changes in the Companies Act in 2013, if you look at the, the LODR amendments being brought in by SEBI, if you look at the non-financial reporting pieces, the BRSR pieces coming in now, I think in terms of India and its regulatory framework, I think we are at par with the rest of the world. Probably we are far better than some of the Western countries as well. But it's always a question of the culture, and the culture to protect shareholder value. I think that needs to be understood, not just by the board but by the overall organization, because it's not just the board. It's a culture is not just the responsibility of 10 people sitting on the board, or the audit committee, or the auditors, right? And I think if you look at the current, wave of digital transformation which is going across India, yes, you're correct that if you take very slow decision making will leave you behind. And hence you will have to go forward and take those decisions. But at the same time, I think the fundamental focus on protecting shareholder wealth, I think that needs to be, that can't be compromised on. And I think also what you're seeing is that many of these startups now, many of the large corporates, large audit firms, the institute, the regulators are working with them to sort of see how they can protect shareholder wealth. Because I think this is becoming very important. But I would say that in my experience working with Indian corporates, and specifically family-owned businesses or promoter-led businesses, I think there is a distinct, move by them to imbibe this, and they understand that they are doing it to protect themselves, and they are doing it to protect the business. So while yes, it would need faster decision making, but I don't think that the current regulations are stifling it. I think India is probably making the right steps, would be my.
So if I may ask a follow-up question, if you look at a company like Meta, for example, Mark Zuckerberg has got this special class of shares which allows him to have a larger decision-making power. I think his shareholding is probably 5%, but his class of votes allow him to have 51% vote. And yes, you're right, and I agree that in some cases our regulations are far better. But in our, sometimes we also look at the West and we say, sometimes their processes are better or their controls are better. What's your opinion? Is this something that what's your personal view on this dual class of shares which allows somebody to just be there like a dictator for life?
So I think again, I would probably say this, that you'll have to look at the legality of it, and then you have to look at the morality of it. Mm-hmm. And I think in American business, the legality probably trumps morality in most cases. So to that extent, if you look at different instances, right, it's not that they're doing something which is illegal. And to a large extent, the board or the regulations would have to follow the law of the land. So to that extent, if there is a special class of shareholding which is allowed in in that country, the promoter would probably definitely take that opportunity. It's a question of doing the right thing. But I think if you look at Meta, and I can it's not just Meta. If you look at the entire NASDAQ, it has been at least I would say huge amount of wealth has been wiped off in the NASDAQ over the last 6 months. But I don't think that it is with an intent to do a fraud. It is with an intent to sort of take out money from the system and use it for some other usage. I don't think that's there.
Sure. Thanks, Arnab.
If I might.
Yeah, continue, please.
I think the challenge in the system is that some of these, when they are brought in by the regulators, they're brought in with certain higher aspirations, and it could be to allow you to invest more, to allow you to grow faster. Regulations are not really done keeping a Facebook in mind or keeping a Meta in mind.
Become the aberrations.
Right? And these organizations have the ability to, sort of take advantage of some of these regulations, so to say. Yes, Mr.
We're talking about culture, and I'll just sum it up in one sentence. In America, corporates drive the government. In India, government drives corporates. And I think I'd rather be on this side of the line. Thank you.
So don't give the mic. I'm going to ask you the next question. Actually, because I think this is a very interesting conversation we are having, and honestly, well, I'm worried about my job 10 years from now. So I think we've heard a couple of things. We heard about you mentioned about government. We've heard about shareholder value. One of the buzzwords that we are hearing is ESG, and Elon Musk, whom you mentioned when you were talking earlier, is very anti ESG. He's been quoted many a times that ESG is it's like a smoke screen or whatever. Yeah. But how are you seeing this ESG thing coming in? Because all the funds now, they invest in companies based on their ESG score. Companies are now working towards improving their ESG score. How are you seeing this emerge in our country and globally?
You see, if you look at the business scenario across the globe these last 10 years, what is it pointing at? It is pointing at what the world needs, what the 8 billion people of this planet need. Not about the Elon Musk being, a special class and therefore monopolizing the company's decision making. Does it need corporates whose only commitment is to the bottom line and the interest of the shareholder per se and nothing else? Or does society at large demand from the corporate, demand and want that they should be liable, accountable for the business decisions that they make, which adversely impact wider society? The role of corporates has come under the microscope for what reason? Because of the skullduggery, because of the commitment to exploiting nature and global reserves nakedly, brazenly, and out in the open. So what is happening is a counter draft, a whole slew of world opinion which tells us that mammon worship has to stop. That you owe, as business houses, far more to the planet and its people than just, minting money. And because that global attitude has changed, because the world now demands from corporate leadership far more than at the time of their fathers or grandfathers, the attitude of the business community has had to change, whether they want it or they don't want it, because global opinion demands it. Today when I attend the biggest platforms on earth, Davos or wherever, the corporate leader does not talk about his bottom line. The corporate leader speaks about what he or she is doing for the planet, what he or she or his company is doing for society at large, and how proud and how committed they are to the fact that they're doing this. That's the business speak of today. It's not about how much profits they made in the last quarter. So because the dialogue, because the conversation, because the way business leaders are expected to come before the world has completely changed, it has led, if you work backwards, to the boardroom. The boardroom conversation has changed because what do they need to project as a company is what boardrooms are about. The law we wrote, Mr. Bhattacharya will bear this thing to it, for the 2013 Act, in a way, when I had put all those riders to how you become an independent director, today I sit as an independent director in several companies. And in a way you can say the law has come back to bite me. But the fact is that when you actually perform the role that you had envisioned independent directors should play, You're happy that you did it because now I'm so conscious. Somebody mentioned your 2,000-page agenda. It doesn't matter, but I've got to read every word before I get there. I'm also the chairman of the audit committee. And every time I go there, my toes curl, my fingers hurt because I just keep thinking, if I make one mistake, will I go behind bars tomorrow? So maybe I would say the law is a deterrent in some ways. We are conscious that we need to make decisions which 3 months or 10 months or 12 years down the line will stand scrutiny, not just for today. Because whether it's the CBI or the ED or whoever comes after us is going to see it in a very different way from the way in which you took that decision. So in that sense, I think awareness has grown, understanding has grown, and the transparency with which we make decisions has grown.
Also, sir, if I may add here, I think besides these factors, when I talk to young people who work in my company or elsewhere, or including my kids, they look at things from a very different angle. The so-called Gen Xers or the millennials, they're very cognizant. My children are very cognizant. If they go work for a company, that company would have to tick certain boxes, and it will not be just about, the compensation they get from the company. It will have to be, for example.
Remember, Harish, when we were recruited,
Yes, sir.
what did the company tell us? Have you done this? Have you done this? What is your qualification? What do you expect to do? Have you read up this law? Do you know that? It was a one-way conversation.
Yes, totally.
I go out recruiting. I am the one who's in the chair.
Yeah.
What does your company do? Do you do this? Do you do that? What the hell, man? Are you the recruiter or am I the recruiter?
It's changed.
So, as I said, the conversation, the dialogue, the approach, everything has changed. And we only saw up to Gen Z. What do I see now? Gen Alpha. And they are the ones who were in the womb a few days back. So, attitudinally, we've gone to another space altogether. And in a way, it's a very good thing that happens because we now become, in a sense, accountable to the very people whom we are recruiting. I need to get to the airport, so please keep an eye at the time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. What time do you have to leave, sir?
I have to leave at 15:15, but we've gone past that, so 4:30 is when I need to go.
We'll wrap it up in a few minutes. Thank you, sir. But I'll hate it that you would leave because we're having such a exciting conversations, at least for me. I'll call on, sir. I'll call on you again. Competition Act, and we spoke about independent directors being scared. I'm personally scared, not only about the liabilities, but also that robots will take away that. But
Going back for a second. Oh my God. That is still, don't worry, it'll happen after you've long laid down the office.
But are there any liabilities for directors of the companies under Competition Act? For if they're sitting on the board of a company and that company gets caught under something under the Competition Act?
The Competition Act has two kind of liabilities for the directors in case the contraventions have been done by the companies. So first one is that if the contravention has been done with the consent or connivance or some negligence on the part of the concerned person, then there is a direct liability for that person and he is deemed to be guilty. Another is that if that person is in charge of or responsible for the conduct of the company, then also he is deemed to be guilty, though he may not be directly aware of the anti-competitive conduct. But in that case, the law provides a defense that he has to prove that the contravention was done without his knowledge, or he has put in sufficient safeguards in place to prevent such kind of occurrences. So that's why we say that if the senior management or the directors have put in place a competition compliance program, so they can take advantage of that program, that they have implemented sufficient safeguards to prevent any occurrences by their staff.
Okay. I think that's reassuring, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Deshpande, is there a methodology to assess the performance of board members or the maturity of
Particularly for independent directors.
yes, of a board.
Absolutely. So there is a concept called as evaluation of board, and I think I know few of the cases when the company was really deep down in losses, and I talked about evaluation of board, and they said, "Ki, we have failed. The bottom line is crashing, so we have failed." And another case when they were making very good profits, and I said, "Okay, we have to evaluate the board and the performance of the board." They said, "No, not required. We're doing so fine. Our market value is going up. Our share prices are going up. So what is the requirement of having the evaluation of board?" So this is a thought process of few of the promoters or even few of the boards, because even though it is mandatory to have a board evaluation system, but many of the times the board evaluation is done in a way wherein the executive directors will evaluate all independent directors will evaluate all executive directors, and then there will be a complete evaluation of the complete board. But I think there is a requirement of making some change into this, like in respect of CSR, we have an impact assessment, a third-party impact assessment. Same way, many of the companies are now going for this particular board evaluation, wherein third parties are appointed, and they will evaluate the performance of the board of directors. So now the time has come wherein we don't evaluate ourselves, but a third party comes, and on a very confidential manner, without naming the directors, they take the feedbacks and they give the board evaluation, and that will clearly give the maturity of, that will be an indication of the maturity of the board. And I think again, I'm again going on artificial intelligence and blockchain, and because being
it's the way of the future.
Yeah, it is way of the future, and we all as a professionals also, as regulators also, we need to think about it. But soon everything will be done by a system. So if there is an application, for example, whistleblower, like Jalani ji said, there was a small URL was created wherein you can put in all your queries. Same way, board evaluation will be done on a confidential app, which will actually be a continuous process of evaluating the board of the companies, and that will definitely show us what is the maturity of the board. So I think that's the future.
That's very reassuring.
Yeah.
I know we are running out of time, so I'm going to just ask one last question from Jalani ji. Sir, anti-bribery, anti-corruption. If I was to now, while there is a law, and many companies also go beyond the law of our country, but also try to be compliant to the FCPA or the ABC of the UK. But, when you look at companies, not only as, a practicing CA when you were, and now you sit on the, on the regulators, what is the right mechanism? How can the companies get the right balance in complying with anti-bribery, anti-corruption frameworks?
You see, I always talk practical things. In India, I think right now this is not the time that we can say that there will be no bribe or no corruption. Because for that, we have to again, change the culture. Because as an industrialist, I'm ready to spend because I want the work to be done speedily.
Sorry, we'll just take a minute.
As an industrialist, I want my work should be done speedily, and I authorize my officers to get it done somehow. The word somehow is very, catchy. And it is not the anti-bribery we have to have in our own house also, in company also. It is not that when we talk about bribery, it is we are giving to government agencies or government persons. No, it is happening in our own company. In purchase department, in sales department. We have the examples. So when I just share you one example because you taught me to share the examples. When I used to go for internal audit, I used to find out the round figure expenditure in traveling expenses and repair and maintenance. Round figure. Because 20,000 Jaipur, Delhi, Jaipur, taxi bill, round figure, from not a regular taxi operator, from a different taxi operator, the payment made in cash same day, while the other taxi operator used to wait for 15 days. Like repair maintenance, whitewash of the building, 3 lakhs rupees, round figure, no tender, bill came, same day payment made. What are these? So I used to ask the manager, report me any such expenses if you have booked because of paying somebody, tell me in advance. I will leave those vouchers. So sir, it has to be thorough. I just share you one life example. Have you heard about Jignesh Shah of National Commodity Exchange? Few years back. How it was bust? It was bust because of me. I was the internal auditor of a government company of northern region. And I found that full year sale of that region, 800 crore, out of that 750 crore was because of that National Commodity Exchange transactions. What they used to do, on 1st April, the company used to buy 10,000 kgs of rice of X price. And on 16th April, they are buying on 1st April on price X, and they are entering into agreement on 1st April only for selling those goods at the rate X plus 1 rupee. And there is no actual handover takeover of the goods. The bill used to be raised, GST used to be paid, and 16th April, the company will sell the goods. Bill will be raised, GST will be paid, and money will be exchanged. I asked them, out of 800 crore, your 750 crore rupees turnover because of this?
Circular transaction.
I said, I don't consider it a sale purchase. I consider it as a short-term financing business. They said no. I said, you give me I am raising the questions, 5 questions, let the board give me the answers. And I proved them that on 1st of April, I bought the goods from Rupanjana, and on 16th April, on 1st April only, I am entering into agreement with Rupanjana only that on 16th April I will sell you back. And there is no practical handover of the goods. There is a warehouse who keep the goods, and 10,000 bags rice kept by a warehouse is owned by 100 companies. So I made a question, because I am the internal auditor. On 31st March, I will go to the godown and keep my lock. They sold everything on 29th March. But somehow, my question answer paper, it went to the investigations agency CBI. That's what happened after that. So sir, again and again I am telling you, what corporate governance you are talking about, it is a compliance of rules only. We are not talking anything practical, adherence of principles. That is more important. So one has to see, if we follow our principles, corporate governance will come automatically. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Cognizant of time, I'll just open up if there are a couple of questions that the audience may want to ask my panelists here. Can we get a mic to the lady in the back, please? Right side.
Hello,
Ma'am,
sir.
if you'd also speak out to whom you would like to ask the question.
Sir, my question is to Vijay, sir. He explained every bit of it with, with preciseness. How precisely he pointed out that the warehouse thing. So, my simple question is the governance that we are talking about is more in the power. We are talking about the, when the corporate governance comes, it is obviously a post-mortem. Transaction happened, then we are reporting. So if corporate governance is a tree which we want to grow, so what are the essentials, like what is the water, sunlight? So what are the key elements which you feel should be there to boost it up? Because we are doing the post-mortem analysis of all the compliances and all those things happening. And second, sir, what empowers you to speak up your consciousness so clearly? Thank you.
Let me tell you, friends, I was a practicing chartered accountant from 1983 till 9th May 2016. And to become government nominee in the council, the requirement is that person cannot be a chartered accountant. So I not only surrendered my certificate practice, I surrendered my membership. I'm not a chartered accountant now. Then I started doing my law. I was not LLB earlier. I started doing my law in 2016, finished in 2019, started as practicing as advocate after that. Because my passion was to do something for the CA Institute. Because I know what is happening there. That is why I speak thoroughly. I have my command over me. Because in the council, this is my 7th year in the CA Institute, and I was in the council of the company secretaries from 15 to 19, 4 years. No one can say that I raise any issue because of me. I am nowhere interested. And whatever I have to say, I have to say in the council, not after that. After that, all are my friends. Because this principle I take from politicians. In parliament, they abuse everybody. In the evening, I see them together. I'm telling you. So you have to talk about conscience because you are clear. Otherwise, you cannot raise any issue. That is the point. When we talk about bribery, I tell you, there is a peer review system in the CA Institute. You know, every CA firm, if they want a listed company audit, they have to be peer reviewed. I was a peer reviewer during my practice days. A case came to me, and in that what we do, we select the 3 biggest clients of that company unit who is getting peer reviewed. So I went to do that peer review audit. He said, this is my biggest client. In 2 minutes, I told that person, Mr. So-and-so, I want to ask one question. Did you audit it or did you sign it? In 2 minutes, I am telling you. He said, why are you asking? I said, you reply me, I will reply you. He said, sir, earlier my boss under whom I did my CA training, they were the auditor. This year they said, you do it. So balance sheet came from there and I signed it. But now you tell me, how could you discover it in 2 minutes? I said, look, last year debtors are 500 crore rupees. This year sales 600 crore rupees. If I assume nothing came from the last year debtors, if I assume all the goods have been sold on credit, the debtor should have been 1100 crore. Yours is 1250 crore. It means loan given to related party transactions were short and the debtors. So it's very simple. But one has to make it his conviction. Because what I do, I start the things that there is something wrong in this paper. I have to find out. While otherwise, what is happening? File is coming to you because below 2 officers have signed, you will also sign. You must have seen. I will, oh, he must have seen, I will sign, that file will go to him. He must have seen. Everybody must have seen and signing. Nobody is looking into the papers. So I think I have spoken enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. With this, I'd call on Sukanya to take over. I think, personally, Bengal Chamber, thank you for inviting me. I had a great time. I think, very, very educative session. Sirs, thank you so much. It was an honor today.
Thank you. Before we say thank you to you, I would request the chairman of the committee, Mr. Jitendra Kumar, to please come up on the stage and give a memento on behalf of the chamber to the esteemed panelists. To Mr. Arnab Basu, Advisory Leader, PricewaterhouseCoopers Private Limited. Advocate Vijay Jalani, Government Nominee, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Our moderator, Mr. Harish Agarwal, Partner Ernst & Young. Sri Sachin Goel, Joint Director, Financial Analysis, Competition Commission of India. And C.S. Devendra V. Deshpande, President, ICSI. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We would now start with the award ceremony, but before that, I'll take 2 minutes for a changeover. I would request my esteemed panelists to be seated downstairs, and I would request my crew to arrange for the award ceremony. Can I have the lights off, please? The room lights needs to be off. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank the partners of our today's program, without whose support this program wouldn't have been successful. Excite Industries Limited, our knowledge partner PwC, our digital media partner My Kolkata, the Telegraph Online, the gold sponsor CESC Limited, silver sponsor Anmol Industries, Linde India Limited, Tata Steel Downstream Products Limited, and our event supporter, RT Network Solutions Private Limited. Special thanks to JIS, our chief patron. With that, we would like to start the award ceremony. Special Jury Award under Unlisted Medium category goes to Vikram Solar Limited. A round of applause. May I request Mr. Arnab Basu, the Senior Vice President of the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to be on the dais to give away the award. Can we have Vikram Solar Limited? Congratulations to Vikram Solar Limited. Mr. Basu, we request you if you can be on the dais for the next award. Can I have the mics, please? Microphone, please.
Thanks Bengal Chamber for selecting Vikram Solar for this special jury award. Though Vikram Solar is an unlisted entity, but this is the mission of the management and the board to comply as per the SEBI as well as the MCA. So we don't fall actually basically under the SEBI regulations. But this is the dream of my management to comply in all angle, both the FEMA, SEBI, MCA and all these things. Then to make this, all these IDs to be in the board, making the most stringent norms to follow in the corporate governance practice. And the journey just started. I hope that Vikram Solar will do very well in future also.
Thank you so much. Please take the mic. Please take the mic from Mr. Basu. Can somebody from the crew help me out? Thank you. May I now request Advocate Vijay Jalani ji to be on the dais to give away the next set of award along with Mr. Arnab Basu, our Senior Vice President. The next set of awards goes to, before that let me tell the category, the unlisted large category. Ladies and gentlemen, it goes to Tata Steel Downstream Products Limited. A round of applause for Tata Steel Downstream Products Limited. Congratulations. Mr. Mitra, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much for first of its kind thing in Bengal Chamber. And really it will boost up our morale and our confidence on handling the corporate governance function. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mitra. Thank you, Mr. Basu. Thank you, Advocate Jalani. I would now request Professor Ashish Bhattacharya to be on the dais for giving away the next set of award, along with Mr. Jitendra Kumar, Chairperson of the Corporate Governance Committee. Thank you, sir. Winner under unlisted small category goes to Eduplex Solutions Limited. Congratulations.
Thank you, Bengal Chamber of Commerce, for giving us this recognition. We are very, very happy. We have followed our path of truths of transparency, compliance, as well as empathy, and that has yielded us the fruit. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much and congratulations. May I request Devendra V. Deshpande to be on the dais to give the next set of award. And the next set of award is for winner under listed medium category. And the award goes to Tata Metallics Limited. Congratulations, Tata Metallics.
Thank you, Bengal Chamber, for recognition. We are from Tata Group of Companies, where we always try to do beyond the law what's provided. I take this opportunity to say one or two things. Like we have discussed here a lot about the ESG. Say we are coming from iron and steel. We are trying to be water positive by 2025. Tata Group has talked about net zero by 2045. And just to say that even today, even for any projects, for 1 ton of additional carbon dioxide, we take a charge in the national charge to do our IRR calculation and all. So this kind of award and things will put us on high motivation, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And congratulations once again. May I now request the President of the Bengal Chamber, Mr. Shubir Chakraborty, Mr. Jitendra Kumar, the Chairperson of the Corporate Governance Committee, Mr. Arnab Basu, Senior Vice President of the Bengal Chamber, to be on the dais to give away the winner under listed large category. There is a suspense. Before that, we have to announce the special jury award under listed small category. And that goes to Hincon Chemicals Limited. Can we have Hincon representative on the dais, please?
Yet another, I would like to thank BCC&I for this recognition. It's another feather to our cap. Previously, we were invited by BCC&I in this program, and we have excelled for the first time as our entry in this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you and congratulations.
I'll also like to thank everyone because I just started to go with my dad. So I got to learn a lot, like seeing all of this. Like I used to go, I see all these compliances. I would like like what's the use of all this? But now after today's meeting, I understand it's useful. And I also realize that it will be beneficial for my own company if all these compliances are maintained. Thank you.
Well said, absolutely. Thank you. Now comes the BCCI Corporate Governance Recognition winner under listed large category. The award goes to ITC Limited. Congratulations. Big round of applause, please. Thank you so much. I would request all the esteemed juries and all the award winners to please be on the dais for a photo opportunity. Saji, people want to hear you.
Thank you, BCCI, for conferring this award on us. And ITC, as you all know, is a pioneer in the corporate governance and will continue to strive for excellence in this governance space. That's it. Thank you.
So can we have you on the dais, please? We are requesting all the awardees to come in the same platform. May I have all the awardees up here on stage? And our esteemed jury members. Ashish sir, please, if you... Apart from our partners, we are very much thankful to our esteemed panel of jury, our knowledge partners, and our team who have worked day in and day out for this program. I would like to thank specially Seema Bajaj and Nishanji for their continuous support and effort, along with my team member Amrita Basu, Abhishek Kaur, and my ex-colleague Debaditya Dotto. And also thanks to my entire team of Bengal Chamber for putting up the BCCI Corporate Governance Recognition Award, the first edition so successful. Last but not at all the least, thanks to all of you and all the participants who have participated and taken time of their busy schedule. And thank you. See you once again in the next edition. Please join us for high tea upstairs in the third floor.